we've talked about Browns need a lot. They probably need 4 starting offensive linemen, including 2 tackles, and a quarterback, and a number 1 wide receiver. 2 first-round picks. How do you balance? Do you put those 2 picks together? Because you're probably going to have to go up to get the top quarterback. How does that all play out? And if you bring a quarterback in and you can't address the line and the wide receivers, what are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is going to be depending on exactly how the top of that draft plays out in terms of which teams are in which order, because a couple of the teams close to the top of the draft don't need quarterbacks, so they're going to be looking to trade out. One of the other ones, the Raiders, you could potentially argue they might be keen to trade out and not take a quarterback because of the ties that Pete Carroll has to Geno Smith, and maybe he thinks if he can rebuild things first, then maybe get a quarterback down the line, and Geno's can still be a good quarterback. So, the Browns, I think, may have a pretty good chance of being high enough and then armed with enough draft picks to make that jump and go as high as they need to if it is a one quarterback draft. If you basically think it's Fernando Mendoza and that's it, you might have to get to number 1 to make that happen. But they might have a different read on this draft class, and maybe they do like a quarterback that will be available lower down, and they only need to, spend 1 first-round draft pick to get their guy. I think given the way this season went, they have to go and get the quarterback. They've got to do whatever they need to do trade-wise, throw whatever they need to make that happen and go get their guy. But you're right, that then becomes tricky in terms of, well, now how do we go get multiple offensive linemen, a high-end wide receiver from somewhere? And that's not easy. Maybe you've got to, trade next year's first round pick into this year and try and double up with talent the way the Texans did when they drafted C.J. Stroud and then came back and got Will Anderson. Maybe you've got to try and do something like that. But yeah, I think step 1 has got to be identify the quarterback, figure out a way of getting him. And then step 2 is how do we put enough talent around this kid that he doesn't fail immediately right out of the gate?